All right, so we're gonna go over how you go about choosing a photographer because this is the most important part on Amazon. If you don't have good photos, then well, yeah, you're not gonna sell. Anyways, so there's a lot of firms out there. You go on Google. If they're not gonna go with Virtuous Graphics with you guys, like what should they be looking for in a photographer? If they're gonna go choose someone else, like and or maybe they try to do it themselves. Like maybe should they try doing it themselves or whatnot? Let's get some. You wanna provide some
Yeah, yeah,
insight?
yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost is, I tell people this all the time. Like you absolutely don't need to go with virtuous graphics. You don't need to go with professional service. Finding someone that you can work with is actually pretty straightforward. It's just it just depends on the quality of output that you're going to get in the end. So finding a photographer is pretty easy. The number one thing that I would say, especially if you're a new seller or you're starting out, you want to do the cheapest thing possible, is find someone who is location proximal to you, right? So you can go find a photographer on the other side of the world, maybe in India, wherever. But at the end of the day, unless you're working with 3D renders, they're going to actually have to get physical products that you have. So that means you're going to have to ship them from your supplier in China, or maybe you're going to have to ship them from your FBA warehouse. And so that's going to add up in terms of cost. So that's one important consideration to keep in mind. Also, maybe you have suppliers in China and you're saying, oh, well, I can just hire a Chinese photographer. The second thing that's most important is your ability to communicate with that person. So that's why we have decided to put pretty much all of our operations here in the Philippines, is because everyone speaks English fluently. But if you're not looking to outsource to the Philippines, then I'd say the U.S. is a pretty solid option, because if that person has a Prime account who's a photographer, you can just ship your products to them pretty much for free, or you can put out, it's much cheaper to get there. Um, Beyond that, like in terms of going and actually finding a photographer, you just use the normal stuff like Upwork, Freelancer, Fiverr. Freelancer is something that is actually pretty interesting. Not a lot of people use Freelancer. Upwork and Fiverr tend to be a little bit more popular. But I like on Freelancer, one of the features is they actually have a contest feature. So if you're hiring creatives, you can actually go put out a project and you can say, hey, I want you to go and create different designs or different, photography around this concept. And then you can actually just pick the best one and award your contract to whichever one you think is the best. So, when I'm hiring people, one of the big things that I try to focus on is giving people a sample assignment. I can look at a portfolio and that's a pretty good example of what I might be able to expect in their work. But if I can give someone a sample assignment and compare that across a couple of different candidates, then that's really going to speak. You're going to be able to compare apples to apples who did the best thing. So, when you're going and picking a photographer, yeah, I mean, like proximity, communication, and then the quality of the work, which you're going to see from their portfolio, but then more so from giving them a sample assignment.
That's a good point, actually, because I know that myself, I use 99 Designs to get my product design, but I never actually thought about doing a contest to do specifically the product photos, or like, but I guess if you're making an infographic or something, or you already have photos of it and you're trying to do something additionally on top, then I could see that. Uh,
Or
obviously.
Brock, a good example too is, if you want to give someone, and we do this all the time for our photography sample assignments. If you want to compare apples to apples, is you say, hey, here's an example of a prime Amazon listing that maybe it's in your same category, like home goods, right? And you say, go pick something in your house. Maybe that's a little bit more complicated to shoot. So glassware, things that reflect, so metallic items, and say, give them something that's really difficult and say, go put that in your photo box and then come back and send me like 3 or 4 white background images. And you're very easily going to be able to see some differences if it's like a similar
Oh,
item.
that's a good idea. Oh, I didn't think of that. Well, how neat. Okay, so what about shooting product photos yourself? Would you suggest that people try that, or just not worth it? Or like,
I mean,
is there any scenario
yeah.
where you should shoot photos yourself?
Yeah, sure. So there are certain products that are super simple, right? Maybe if you're selling a phone case, for example, and it's like a very dark color, because Amazon, as you probably know, they have their app that you can upload the photos in, and you can actually turn a normal photo into a white background photo pretty easily. I think if it's a very simple product, then you can probably get away with doing it and it's going to look just fine. So those are things that don't have really highly reflective surfaces. There's not like a lot of bits and pieces that kind of hang off. It's just like one solid item, rather than, maybe like fabrics, right? For example, on the edges, if you're shooting it on a bad white background with not great lighting, you're not going to be able to see all those details when the rendering program kind of removes the white background. So things like that are going to be a little bit more difficult. On top of that, like you got to think about products that need a lot of prep time. So one of the products we got recently, I'll go back to the towel example, or yeah, no, it was like a dinner cloth or something. So you had to iron it, you had to fold it, you had to arrange it in a really good way. If you think you're going to be able to do that and set that up in a good way, go for it. But I think that's the area where you're probably going to want professionals to do it because it's just going to look infinitely better.
Okay, so maybe if you've got those really simple products and they're really high ROI, they don't cost that much, and you have a lot of them, then maybe it's economical to go ahead and actually do it yourself. But or if it's super simple, but I mean, if it's anything that's complex and is going to sell for a lot, I mean, if this is going to make you $100,000 a year, you spend a couple grand in photos or something, like you do it right.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the other thing is, everyone, I mean, how much money are you spending a month on PPC? How much money are you spending a month on your actual purchase orders and shipping and all these different costs that are associated with your business? So if you're just starting out, maybe go try to do the cheapest thing possible. But this is the thing that people are going to look at first on page one when they actually get into your listing. And so, thousands of dollars might be a lot for product photography. It's way even more than what we charge. But if I'm saying, hey, I just spent 10K
over exaggeration.
I just spent 10K in purchase orders, just for this last set. And then, I mean, you probably want to go spend $500 to get really good looking images because there is a difference.
Okay, great. There is a difference. So thanks for going over that. You do photos on yourself, but probably not. And then now you guys know how to find a photographer.